A huge mistake people make is they only buy in their own local market. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold. This is Get Rich Education. You're going to avoid some of the most crucial, damaging mistakes for real estate investors. Oftentimes the best deals aren't in your local market. Generally, the coasts have the worst deals for long-term rental real estate, and the best deals are in the Midwest and South. Now, I started buying in my own home market, but as soon as I bought out of market, I started to get better deals. In fact, this is a look at the first property that I ever bought out of market. It's one of the prettier properties that I ever bought. I bought it predominantly because it looked nice and it was so cheap. It was only $153,000 in Metro Dallas-Fort Worth. I bought it in 2012. Yes, my first ever out-of-state turnkey rental property. This is what it looks like. I did okay with this one, but I kind of made a mistake because I led a little bit with emotions. Compared to me and the market I live in, if I could buy this for just $153K and it looked this nice, I thought, how could I go wrong with that? Well, it really wasn't that profitable. It didn't cash flow that well. I've never seen the property in my life. I bought it, owned it for a few years, sold it for more than I bought it for, and I've still never even seen the property. So a property does not need to be pretty. In fact, here is the first ever property that I bought, that seminal fourplex building in Midtown Anchorage, Alaska, that ended up working out pretty well for me. And you know what? If anyone tells me that I got lucky when I bought this fourplex building, because it did provide a pretty good income stream and it did appreciate handsomely, you know what? If someone tells me that I'm lucky on this first property that I bought, you know what I have to tell them? You're right. Yeah, you're actually right. I did get lucky because when I bought this property, basically all that I knew when I lived in one unit of this fourplex building and rented out the other three, I just knew that I was living for free, but I didn't know to consider things like, oh, well, is there going to be population growth? And are we in an economic, vibrant place to do business in with the diversification of industry here? We actually were, but I got lucky. I didn't consider those bigger picture things first. Again, the market being more important than the property. I kind of got lucky on that first fourplex. And again, that first fourplex wasn't very pretty. A property does not need to be pretty. Hey, go ahead and put a YouTube like on this video if you would. That helps me show this video to more people. I'd rather have more people see this than fewer. You know, I think a terrible question for a real estate investor that's looking for the production of income, a terrible question for you to ask yourself is, would I live in this property myself? And if I would live in this property myself, only then would I put it in my portfolio. No, we're letting emotions trump facts here. Rental property is more about the facts than the emotions. Emotions might exist in your primary residence where you make memories with your family or something like that. So the wrong question is, would I live here myself before you consider buying a property? The right question to ask yourself is, would this property attract a tenant that would respect the property and pay the rent? You know, as I look to get both cash flow and appreciation in properties, my mission and what I look for is really fourfold. I seek property that's clean, safe, affordable, and functional. Those four things. As soon as you try to do beautiful, you typically begin to lose because with higher purchase prices, the rents don't keep up proportionally. They don't really get that much higher. So clean, safe, affordable, and functional is it. A great question for you to ask yourself is, would this property secure an income stream? That's the bottom line. I have been directly investing in rental property for more than 19 years. I own dozens of units in multiple states and nations. And you know what? If I would have ever lived in any rental property that I've ever owned, I would be diminishing my quality of life, including all the rentals I own now. If I lived in any of them, I would be diminishing my quality of life, but yet they still secure an income stream. So if your standards are too high, you're really limiting yourself. But yeah, I wouldn't want to live in any one of my rentals. You know, I like my quality of life with where I live now, with the level of privacy and the nice finishes and views and a landscaped yard. A lot of those things just don't make sense in long-term rentals. Yeah, facts trump emotions. I save emotions for people more so than things. Unless you buy a new construction property, you're often inheriting tenants, like you're inheriting two tenants in this duplex. And a lot of times the seller might be this mom and pop person that's not very professional. You need to make sure the tenants have written leases with rules there where you know how much rent they're going to pay, and have they paid security deposits, which also gets transitioned over to you when you buy the property. Security deposits to hedge against them doing any damage, which is typically equivalent to 1 month's rent in the unit. Are there even leases? And you know, such a common thing to say, I probably had this happen more often than not when I bought property, is that the seller or the seller's agent says, you know what, the rents are below market. Let's just say in this duplex that the rents are $1,350 per side, and they're going to tell you that, well, market rents are $1,500 here, so you're getting to buy below market. You're going to get to raise in the market. No, here's what you need to tell them. Here's your position as a buyer. Hey, I need to buy this based on the rents that are being paid today because I'm paying for this in today's dollars. And if I need to raise the rents from $1,350 up to $1,500 on both sides of this duplex, I'm probably going to lose one of the two tenants. So I'm the one that needs to eat that risk if we do that. So no, I'm only going to pay it for the rents that you're getting today because I'm paying in today's dollars. And how much can this property rent for? What could you raise rents up to? You know what? You don't want to ask an agent. Very few agents know about investment property. They're often well-intentioned, but they are incentivized to want to make the sale. Ask a property manager. They'll often give you a good estimate. They can tell you what comparable units in the area currently rent for. So be sure to ask a property manager what it should rent for, not an agent. Be sure to get a property inspection before you close on this property, just like you would in your own home. An independent third-party inspection where they're going to point out any defects with the property that the seller is typically on the hook for paying and making sure are completed before you purchase a property. Don't skip the inspection. Even on new construction, you should get a property inspection. I mean, on new construction, a lot of things could go wrong. Say they didn't install the garage door correctly, or they didn't put topsoil in the yard, or a ton of things. And especially on existing construction property, there are going to be more findings, and there are always going to be some findings, probably even dozens of them. And on an existing construction property, it's like a tier of health and safety findings that need to be done. And then there are some less substantial findings that you might negotiate with the seller on them doing for you. And the vital health and safety sort of findings can include things like there needs to be a railing on that porch or someone could fall from it. Or you need to be sure that these windows open and close because they currently don't. These are health and life safety issues. Something in that next tier down that's less important might be something like the laundry door is dented. And that's something that you can ask the seller to do for you, and they may or may not want to do that. That's negotiable. If you happen to be buying a property in the same area where you live, go ahead and attend that inspection with the inspector. And you know what's often happened? I end up talking to the tenants while I'm inside that unit with the tenant and the inspector, and oftentimes they tell me things that take place in the building, like this tenant makes noise over here, or hey, we had a flood in here 2 years ago. Sometimes these are things that the seller doesn't point out, but it's actually valuable for you to talk to the tenants that actually live there. What's it like there? So to review 5 huge investor mistakes that are so common are: number 1, understand that the market is more important than the property. And by the way, I want to give credit to the real estate guys, Robert Helms and Russell Gray, because I first learned some iteration of that from them in my life. The second one, get a property inspection before you buy. The third thing to keep in mind is that tenants make or break this investment. Fourthly, you have more expenses than the mortgage and you need to consider those before you buy. And then finally, a property doesn't need to be pretty. Facts trump emotions. When you subscribe to the channel, and I'd love to have you as a subscriber, please go ahead and hit the notification bell and go ahead and comment below. Let me know about any real estate investor mistakes that you've made. My name's Keith Weinhold. We'll see you in the next video.